Hi friends, this is actually the fourth time I'm attempting to do this video today. It has been one of those days. Apparently there was an issue with the image the first time, the second and third time it was the sound. So hopefully this time it is going to work because I want to share this information with you all today. So this practice could be increasing your risk. So what I want to talk to you about today is something that I am seeing in the community, something that I saw actually this last weekend. And if you've watched my videos in the past, you know that I talked about this before in another video. So what I'm talking about today is wearing the cloth masks. And I did talk about this several videos ago before the recommendation was made for people to start wearing cloth masks out in the public. And one of my concerns was that there would be a false sense of security, number one, and people would start breaking the 6-foot rule. The other thing I was concerned about is that the mask wouldn't be worn appropriately. And so I want to talk to you about those two things today because I am seeing some behaviors that indicate that there are some people that are doing those things. And so first I want to talk about the main thing is touching the mask. So once you put your mask on, you don't want to touch it again. And the reason is because as you're wearing it, it may be contaminated. And when you touch it, now you get those germs on your hands. And this is something that we talk about with healthcare workers all the time because we wear personal protective equipment and things such as masks all the time. And I just want to make a point to say the cloth masks are not considered personal protective equipment. So the reason these are being recommended out in the community is basically to contain your droplets. It's more for self-containment is why you're wearing those in the public. But it's still important that you follow some of these key methods for wearing it out in the public so that you don't contaminate yourself. One of them is not touching the mask. So what I recommend is before you go into the store or wherever you're going in public, you want to put your mask on and you want to test it to make sure that it fits correctly. And so a couple of ways that you can do that is first just tie it on. If you're wearing the ones behind your ear, just make sure that it's tight enough to be comfortable. If you're wearing the ones that tie, those are a little trickier because they can slide on the back of your head. So just make sure that you have it tight. And then what you want to do is either talk to yourself in the mask or potentially chew gum. You want to simulate what it's going to do whenever you're moving your mouth because that's when it's most likely going to move. And so do a little simulation to see if it slides on your face. And if it doesn't, then you're good to go. If it is sliding, then try to adjust it so that it's not sliding. Because what can happen is once you get into the store, you talk to somebody or maybe you're chewing gum or someone calls you on your cell phone and you answer it and you're talking, now it's moving and you're going to have to touch it. And then you're going to need to clean your hands because now your hands could be contaminated. So if it does happen that it moves while you're out, adjust it in the back because this is going to be the cleaner area than the front, okay? So adjust it in the back and then clean your hands. And also, if you're talking on your cell phone, okay, now you've potentially contaminated your cell phone. So you want to wipe it down as well. I know I'm adding lots to your to-do list today. But these are just some key things to keep in mind while you are wearing the mask. So the other thing is, as I mentioned, if you touch your mask, make sure that you clean your hands. So it's always good to have some hand sanitizer on you. I know that some of you may have not been able to get those little hand sanitizers because they're like gold these days. So if you don't have a pocket one, just try to find one. Usually there's one available in the store somewhere. So try to clean your hands before you start touching things again. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is you still want to keep the 6-foot rule. Remember those basics that we learned at the very beginning of the pandemic. We want to keep our hands clean. We want to do respiratory hygiene. So we want to cover cough, cover, or sneeze, which you're doing by wearing the mask, but you want to also keep the 6-foot distance. So if you're in a closed-in area and you can't keep the 6-foot distance, stay as far away as you possibly can, and then frequently clean your hands and have your mask on. Now, the other thing about the mask, or I'm saying mask, it could just be a cloth covering because it doesn't have to be a mask, is you want to make sure that you are washing that every day. Because it is cloth, it could potentially absorb moisture and absorb some droplets. So you don't want to just shove it down in your purse or in your pocket and then pull it out whenever you need it. You want to make sure that you're storing it, preferably in a breathable bag, like a paper bag, or maybe even like a paper box of some sort that can be disposable. And then you want to wash it each night when you're wearing it. And definitely if it becomes contaminated while you're out, like if someone accidentally sneezes on you, or something like that happens where you feel like it did get contaminated, you want to wash it right then. You don't want to reuse it for the rest of that day. So just keep these couple of things in mind while you're wearing your mask. Also, remember that you want to keep your hands clean because that's one of the ways that you're going to have spread is if you're touching things and then touching your mucous membranes or touching your face. That was also one of the first things that we learned is don't touch your face because that's where your mucous membranes are. So just remember, if you're touching things, clean your hands frequently, wear your mask, but don't touch it while you're out. Just get it in place. And then if you have to touch it, try to adjust it in the back where it's least contaminated and not in the front. And after adjusting it, clean your hands and also wash your mask. So I hope some of these little tips have been helpful for you today. These are just a couple of the things that we are going to be talking about in my isolation class for business owners or for people who are working right now in the public. And just a reminder that tonight is going to be the cutoff to register for that class. And so you want to make sure that you register tonight for that. Also, if you are an IP or if you're doing infection prevention, tomorrow night is the last night to register for my isolation class where we'll be talking about personal protective equipment and going over a couple of tips for wearing personal protective equipment in the healthcare environment. Another question that I was asked is, why are people wearing gloves, or should you be wearing gloves? You should not be wearing gloves out in public, and I'm going to tell you why. Gloves are considered personal protective equipment, so they are intended to protect you from blood and body fluids if you're taking care of someone. So that is what they are designed to do. When you're just out in the public, the best thing to do is to clean your hands frequently, because if you're just wearing gloves and you're not changing them frequently, then now that's really like dirty hands because they're not clean. Really, the only other option would be to be continuously changing them while you're in the grocery store, and that's really not ideal either. So the best thing to do out in the public setting is just to keep your hands clean and not to be wearing gloves. So I hope that's kind of cleared things up. That's been another question that I get asked frequently, so I'm glad I had that opportunity to talk about that as well. Feel free to put some questions below if you have any questions, and I'm also going to put those links in to register for those classes if you're interested in doing that. Thanks for joining me today, and I hope this has been helpful for you. Stay well, friends, and I'll see you soon.